You are listening to On the Topic podcast, and this week I'm donning my purple mask. I'm Baron Zemo. No, wait, I'm Dan.
And well, I'm sporting a very new flashy bloody shield, Dan. And I'm Alex.
Oh, you're not the Star-Spangled Man from Part 1, then?
I'm not. No, I'm his evil counterpart, but we'll get to that very shortly. Yeah, we're covering off this week, Dan, at the second part of our review of the Disney Plus streaming service, the Falcon. Well, we'll talk about what the title means at the end, but the Falcon, at least as we know it, and the Winter Soldier. And yes, it's very good set of episodes again, quite consistent, I think, Dan.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm still going to throw it out there. I said it in Part 1. This was better than WandaVision.
And I thought you were smoking crack when you first said that. I've got to be honest, Dan. You've been known to do that, and I thought you're chasing a dragon. But no, I take back my slander, and I have to think it's probably just edged it. I don't think it did anything new. Well, I think WandaVision. Well, if you haven't heard our opinions or views, guys, I'll put it in the description below. And there's those episodes where we cover up over 3 episodes. I think that broke an awful lot of different artistic styles, but this one was much the good stuff. Yeah. If you cracked open the essence of the MCU, I think this would ooze out, and it was delicious goodness. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, Dan, of the last half of the series, where did we leave the guys in the last review, episode 3? What happened then? Do you remember?
Yes, so they'd actually disappeared off to Lithuania, and Zemo and Sam Wilson, No, I tell a lie, it was Latvia. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong bit. So they're in Latvia, and Zemo and Wilson have disappeared, and we've got Bucky, who's been confronted by Ao, one of the Dora Milaje, and they want Zemo back.
They do. They've still got beef.
They've still got beef.
Quite rightly you would do, as your prior king got whacked by him at the United Nations. And I guess in good on the topic style, Dan, we should probably play the good old faithful spoiler warning klaxon.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's give her a dust off. Here we go.
Oh, it's a thing of beauty, and I'm surprised we've played the spoiler alert so many times in recent episodes.
Oh, it's so good.
Because we haven't used it for a long time, and then 2021 came along. It was like, let's do this. Let's brush off that spoiler klaxon. And
I think we're all the better for it, Dan. I think we're all the better for it. It's almost like the third person of the podcast. So yeah, we left it at a very interesting. It wasn't a cliffhanger in as much as what I think it was meant to be, but I suppose, Dan, that it would be a good opportunity in which to address, sadly, the passing of Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther. And just to put it out there, that didn't happen.
No.
And I do think, I'll stand by, I think that was a massive misstep, because they're doing the reshoots. It wouldn't have been too difficult just at that section there to very quickly say, by the way, White Wolf, the king is dead, we're out for revenge, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't. I think, I'm sure there's a good reason for it, and they'll write it into the Black Panther 2. But I just think it was a bit of an own goal. They could have really set things up there, and they could have explored it in that film, but they could have just done something with that. I don't know. I just thought it was a little bit poor. They broke for the coronavirus. They had a couple of people who'd contracted it. They're doing reshoots. In my mind, it was a no-brainer. But hey, what do I know? I'm not Kevin Feige. I'm sure there's a good reason. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But I thought that might happen, and it did, sadly. So yeah, what's going on with IO and where does this episode kick us off, Dan? This is the
Yeah.
episode "The World Is Watching," I think it's called.
The whole world is watching, and for good reason as well. We'll get to at the end of episode 4, and I think there's a lot to talk about. But with this episode actually kicks off with a flashback to Wakanda before the events of Infinity War. And if you really wanted a good reason to cry on this Friday night, then well, you see Bucky, who's obviously excited to see Steve and tell him that he's finally through the Winter Soldier programming. And I'll tell you what, I was quite emotional watching this, Alex. And I know now we talked about episode 6 Friday night just gone at the time of recording, and I think you called me a monster because it didn't really move me that much.
No,
but this opening scene did.
Did it? What is that with these? Is it in the campfire? Is that it?
Yeah, because she starts to say the words of the Winter Soldier programming, and he realizes that he's finally free of it. He doesn't suddenly become this murderous monster that he has been in the past. He's obviously sort of quite emotional about it, and
yeah, because I guess it also, I think it made influence, or maybe I'm just looking for it, but I think it kind of suggested that it also unlocked all of the memories for the Winter Soldier, and I guess he was overridden with the guilt of what he had done, but fully knowing then he was obviously back to himself. So I think it was a really complex, and you think back, Dan, I think you're right. It was a really powerful scene, just showing his freedom that he'd finally got back that had been robbed him from decades, really, wasn't it? It was what, 70 years, was it?
Yeah, if that, maybe more. You know, the poor guy sort of struggled. And I tell you, I watched The Winter Soldier, I think after this episode, or it might have been episode 5, and it's fascinating to see how different Bucky Barnes is now compared to that. You know, he's obviously sort of living with these demons. You know, he killed Tony Stark's parents. You know, he's got a lot of guilt to live with.
Yeah.
And he's trying to make these amends for it, as we sort of discussed in episodes 1 to 3. And I think we sort of get a bit more into that as we hit episode 5, where I think it wasn't quite all action, but it's sort of fleshed out. But we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, after this cutscene, it cuts to AO giving Bucky 8 hours to use Zemo before the Wakandans take him. You know, they feel aggrieved. They still want to see Zemo sort of hung out to dry because they killed their king T'Chaka, which was at the start of Civil War, if I recall.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anyway, Zemo sort of helps them find Carly Morgenthau and at a funeral for her adoptive mother. But, you know, you got Sam who's trying to talk Carly down. He said, like, I'm here, I'm trying to help you. And, you know, our hothead Walker and his mate Hoskins decide they're going to storm in and intercept it.
It was all a bit of a shit show. And they have a bit of falling out, and is Morgan, is it? She runs off. Morgenthau, she runs off. She's got the vials in her pockets, stuffed in her pockets of the super soldier serum. And she goes missing, of course. As we know, Zemo's got his own beef with super soldiers and wants to eradicate them. And he ends up, I guess, confronting her. And she ends up smashing the vials, all bar one kind of rolls off to the side, and she flees with gunshot wounds and the likes. I must admit, Dan, when I saw that, I thought, in a strange kind of twist of, I don't know, insanity, that Zemo might actually take the vial for himself. I
don't think he noticed it, did he? He sort of...
I don't know.
I think at the time he actually stomps on all the serums, and I think I can't remember if he gets interrupted or something. He bugs off, and you know, John Walker walks in and he sort of finds this vial and he pockets it.
Yeah, 5-finger discount straight in the pocket. Now, I've got a question for you, Dan. Just a bit of an interjection here.
Yep.
If you were Walker right now, so Dan is now the new Captain America. Would you take the serum if you're in his boots?
Yes.
Why?
I suppose it would be nice to have that strength and that stamina and that ability of Steve Rogers. But I mean, as we know from Captain America 1, the first Avenger,
Yeah.
you've got the Doctor. He actually said, this is the quote, I've put this in my notes. The serum amplifies everything that is inside.
Yes.
So good becomes great, bad becomes worse. This is why you were chosen, because a strong man who has known power all of his life will lose respect for that power, but a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion. So, mate, I think, I don't consider myself to be a bad person. I don't think that I've got any bad traits. So I
consider yourself a weak man?
I do. You know, I was bullied at school. I'm sure this will come up in our next episode. You know, I'll be talking about my COVID jab. But yeah, I consider myself a weak man. I would certainly value that power and certainly use it for good. What would you do if you were John Walker? Would you take the serum, or would you hold it in your hand, look at it, mull it over, put it on the floor, and just stamp it, knowing that's it? No super soldier serums left.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because I can sympathise with Walker as much as well. He'll have a level playing field because he sees just how vulnerable he is to the Flag Smashers in that fight scene. He knows he needs to. I think he even remarks that they basically picked them apart and they'll no match, and he's playing in the wrong leagues. And you see that then when he's in a minute when he's kicked across the room by the Dora Milaje when they have a fight in the room. He knows he's no match. He's playing in the wrong leagues, but he needs to kind of level it. I can understand why I did it. Would I do it? Probably. But that's because I've got probably the mentality of a 5-year-old where I want to be a superhero, not because I want to do good or bad. I just want to look cool. I want to run down the road super fast. I want to be able to leap over buildings and do all that stupid shit. So I guess from that perspective, yeah, I probably would, but not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
The right thing to do, of course, would be to go, you know what? I'm out of my league, but I'm pretty good with a gun. So I'll smash it and I'll shoot the fuck out of them. And that's what you should do if you're John Walker. But no, he pockets it. He doesn't take it necessarily straight away. He ponders and he talks it through with his partner. But was it Hoskins? He talks through with his partner Hoskins. But he doesn't take it straight away.
No, I mean, even Hoskins said he would take it in a heartbeat. Although
Yes.
I find the ending of this episode very interesting because Hoskins actually becomes a super soldier in the comics. Now, I didn't see this ending coming.
Right.
But I mean, we'll get there in a minute. But, you know, I get it. I get why Walker would take the serum because there is a moment where I think you just said, like, they're back at this house of Zemo and Bucky and Sam, and then you got Ao and the Dora Milaje to come in. And they basically, they take Walker out.
Well, they fuck up everyone. I mean, it doesn't matter if you've got super powers or not. I mean, everyone's flying across the floor. These soldiers, these ladies are very well talented, and they just pull the room apart. And the only person escapes is Zemo through a hole in the floor because he's sneaky.
One of them cleverly actually removes Bucky's arm as well. They do something to his vibranium arm; it just falls off. But hey, it's made in Wakanda.
Yeah. So I think that's really shows the vulnerability and probably the final nail in the coffin, right? You got beat with the Flag Smashers in that first kind of engagement, and then he got beat by the Wakandans. So he's pretty pissed off at this stage, and he's powerless. He's supposed to be the new Captain America, and he can't even hold his own. Yeah,
and all the while this is going on, Carly's threatening Sam's sister Sarah, which sort of forces Sam to have to go and meet her, and she wants to attempt to persuade him to join her. But you know, Sam's a good man. I don't think he would join this kind of movement, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we get to a point where Walker and Hoskins, they engage other members of the Flag Smashers, which leads to another fight in which Carly accidentally kills Hoskins. And so I didn't see that coming.
No. But I think at that point of the series, you had to have some kind of catalyst.
Yeah.
And I think it was a stroke of writing genius because, no offense to the actor, the character, or the writing, but do we really care about that guy Hoskins? Probably not. But
no.
You needed something dramatic to affect Walker to really kind of skew his moral compass and his axis. And you're going to do it if your partner bites the dust.
Yeah, I say it needed that catalyst for this next moment where he's so enraged by his friend being killed, and the serum, as we sort of mentioned, has sort of amplified his sort of bad traits. He goes out with the shield and he kills one of the Flag Smashers literally in front of horrified bystanders who are all filming his actions.
Beheads. I mean, you don't see it obviously.
Yeah.
But a vibranium shield through the neck is going to sever it. So he's effectively cutting off someone's head in broad daylight. And, everyone's looking, Bucky and Sam a lot on looking, going, what are you doing? And it's a really impactful moment. It's not just because it's quite bloody and violent, but because, the name Captain America has now been tarnished.
Yeah. Yeah.
As well as a beloved shield. This shield is... I can't recall. I guess this was a newer version. Was it gifted by the Wakandans? Was it still one from Tony? I can't recall. I think one bit of dust in it.
Yeah, because I think the shield was created by Tony's dad.
It was, and then it was lost in events of, was it Iron Man when it was broken? Sorry,
Yeah.
Iron Man, Civil War, when he was going toe to toe. Steve was going toe to toe with Tony, wasn't it? It was broken. I seem to recall. And then when Steve then joined the fight in Infinity War, they must have created his new shield then, because he obviously had the bespoke one, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, this is also the first time we actually see blood on Captain America's shield. I don't want to sort of downplay Ego giving Peter Quill's mum cancer or the way Thanos killed Loki in Infinity War, but this it's a really dark moment.
It is.
That
really
symbol of hope is, we say, tarnished.
Yeah.
You don't want to see Cap shield covered in blood. Yes, it's very uncomfortable. I just remember sort of feeling quite shocked, probably for about a good half an hour after watching this episode.
And the way they shot it was brilliant. I mean, there's lots of slow-mos and lots of lingering kind of shots there, but it was really impactful. I think they handled it very, very well. And again, it was just a really important, pivotal moment, not just needed for the season, for the series, but for that character. And it kind of set the tone for where the rest of the series was going.
Yeah, definitely. I actually really enjoyed episode 5, which was called Truth. And again, I think people complained because there wasn't a lot of action and there's no shooty bang bang. That's a term we haven't used for a long time.
No.
But you need that moment of just to sort of flesh out the characters again.
Yeah.
It's always like a crescendo. It builds you up and it brings you back down again, just to bring you back up for that last moment.
And you always have that in films, right? So this is just like an elongated film. So you usually have the loss or the devastation and then the reflection. There are technical terms for this. People who know better, who've actually studied this at university and the likes will know what I'm talking about. But then they then go for the final act. It's no different here. They've got lots of loose strings and they have to tie them off, and there's quite a big one. It's building then to apparently what they thought was going to be a big reveal about the power broker, which we'll talk about in a second. And the rest of it. So, yeah, Dan, I think you're right. I mean, I didn't massively enjoy it, but I could see there was a need. And actually, I think it really benefited the two characters. Yeah. Just to kind of learn more about who they were and how they'd react and how they take stock of the situation. Because it's really focused, I think, primarily. I mean, we'll get into the synopsis in a second, but it really primarily focused on Sam's coming to terms with his legacy, but also Isaiah's and how he's got to do right by him. So it's a very complex episode. I think if you threw in there lots of action scenes, it would just dilute it. So it was needed. And you're right. I think the depth really gave it something.
I mean, this episode does start off really strong. Enter Sam and Bucky, who are going to a warehouse, confront Walker, and they demand the shield. And they literally go toe to toe with Walker, who he's jacked up with the serum, and he tears Sam's wings off. It's quite scary. Great parallel to Civil War as well. It's sort of very similar to when Iron Man was fighting Captain America and the Winter Soldier in that. So yeah, it sort of reminded me of that scene a little bit. But I mean, by the end of this fight, Sam and Bucky take the shield and have broken Walker's arm in the aftermath.
And I've got another question for you, Dan. Given Bucky has had many years of service to Hydra and to being a hired assassin and being very skilled, and obviously he himself being powered of some description, do you think he would have let that fight go on for as long as it did in the scene? Because it went on for a while, and Bucky's ass was handed to him more than a couple of times by Walker. You can understand Sam. He is a normal man. Yes, he's military trained, but there's only so much a man can do against something like that without your tech. So that to one side, I can kind of understand. But there's more than a couple of times that Bucky's thrown across the room. He's down and out, and he's almost, he's on the ropes. But do you think, given his background, it would have been that easy for Walker to be able to get the upper hand over two of them? Not a leading question, just one. Because there was lots of noise at the end of the episode on social media. I'm reading people saying, "Yeah, I know, Bucky is more perhaps skilled. He's plenty more years on top of Walker, that's for sure. In terms of his experience and how deadly he is, would he have really been that susceptible to Walker, who's just but army trained and seen a couple of tours, but hasn't really been going up against the hordes of Thanos and hadn't done this and hadn't done that? Do you think he would have been that vulnerable?
No, I don't think so. But I think just sort of prolong that fight a little bit, and so show Sam struggling a little bit. Then maybe from an action point of view.
Yeah, I mean you're right. Otherwise, it'd be over in a second. I think if you were stretching, you could say, well, Bucky was perhaps holding back. He's not a killer anymore, so he's not going to be perhaps going in at volume 10. You might be dialing it down to volume 4 as to not, to hurt Walker. I don't know. But there was something that did when I was looking at it going, really? Like, he's a lot more sharp than that, Bucky. I just don't know. I don't quite buy the action scene given what we've seen in the films prior. But you're right, it would have been a shit scene if the Winter Soldier in his form took out Walker. It wouldn't have been much to write home about. But anyway, it is where it is. They're off with the shield, and we've got a literal broken Walker who's sulking off.
Barnes decides he's going to go and find Zemo in Sokovia, where he sort of finds him by a memorial statue.
Yes, because you mentioned it in the previous episode, and he said, "Have you ever been there?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, no, I haven't." They said, "Well, probably should, mate, because your legacy is also about dropping Sokovia on the world and all those people dying. So you might want to visit it." And of course, that's where he ends up.
Yeah. Great moment as well where he holds the gun to Zemo's head.
Yes.
Am I right in thinking he pulls the trigger but there's no bullets in it?
Yeah, he empties it beforehand and drops all the bullets on the floor.
Which can be seen in the trailer. I like that little connection. But
it's good.
Sam Bucky decides that he's going to hand him over to the Dora Milaje, and well, he's off to the raft. That's it. Game over, mate.
Which surprised me too, Dan, because would you really hand it over to, I don't know who's in charge of the raft now, but would you really have done that if you're the Wakandans? Or would you have surely taken him back to serve out the rest of his life in the Wakandan prison for killing your monarch?
Yeah, I'd probably say Wakanda, because I mean, their tech is so good. I mean,
And
we know people could escape from the raft. Steve Rogers just showed us that, and
yeah,
he got Team Cap out of there. So doesn't make a lot of sense. But
no, and they said, they even said we're going to take him because of this. So I just think it's a bit odd that it's handed over to either a nation or at least some kind of law enforcement body that, as you say, has a pretty bad track record of holding people there. But anyway, it is what it is, and that's where he ends up.
yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of Zemo. I think he'll be
No.
back.
And I hope we do see more Daniel Bruhl. I think he's brilliant
Yeah,
as an actor. He's phenomenal, and I think I said this before down in the last episode, but I'll say it again. I didn't mind their depiction of Zemo the first time round in Civil War. I thought it was all right. It was a typical, take on from the MCU and Feige. Why lift something straight out of the comics? It looked weird. It doesn't, but it could look weird in terms of the hood. And he's got some kind of, in the comics, he wears quite tight-fitting trousers. I think he's post-80s. Holster, quite loud colours. And that straight out the gates look a bit odd in the MCU, let's face it. So I kind of got the way they did him in Civil War. But I think he himself grows and, he's quite sarcastic, tongue-cheek, dry sense of humour, but also, dare I say, quite a likeable character, Dan. I'm not sure if that's controversial, but I actually really quite warmed to him.
Yeah. No, I liked him in this series.
Very funny.
I want more of him. And
Yeah.
I think at the time of recording, there's been smatterings of rumours around the internet that we might see a Thunderbolts film or a series. Now, anyone unfamiliar with the Thunderbolts, I suppose it's the Marvel's version of the Suicide Squad. It is literally a group of villains that play the hero.
Yeah.
Which is led by Bucky Barnes, believe it or not. I'd be interested. to see if they can pull something like that off.
So, yeah, I think there'll be plenty more to see from, as I say, Daniel Bruhl and his character Zemo. I don't think that raft will hold him for very long.
No, I totally agree. Moving on to John Walker. Now he's been pulled into looks like a court. He's being stripped of his titles, but he is continuously referring to himself as Captain America.
He does, yeah.
It's not something that Steve did, and this is again the difference between John and Steve. John's sort of very arrogant. He's always strutting around. He struts around like, yeah, I am Captain America, whereas Steve was always sort of very humble. And again, sort of going back to that conversation about the serum earlier, he embraced that strength because he didn't know what that strength was. But they teased it, didn't they? They said we were going to get a big actor that's going to play someone from the Marvel Universe that hasn't appeared in the Marvel Universe. And
yes.
And we got Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. That's a mouthful.
It is.
I can't remember who played her though, Alex. She's quite a big actress, from what I can remember.
I'm not familiar with her, but I know that she's done other stuff. Now, Dan, do you know a little bit about her appearance in this and actually where it was supposed to be in the overall MCU timeline? Do you know what I'm getting at? Did you read this?
No, I didn't. I'm only sort of familiar with her from the comics because she sort of portrays various things in various universes, but I know her primarily as Madam Hydra.
Indeed. Well, Dan, this wasn't supposed to be her great reveal.
Oh. She
is going to be featuring in the Black Widow film.
Oh, okay.
So she's actually supposed to feature in that, and then we should have had it was it May last year? So
yes.
Recording enough a year ago now, when they're now going to get in a couple of months' time straight to Disney Plus or maybe some cinemas if they're open, still in operation or otherwise. She was supposed to feature in there. So this was supposed to be oh shit, I recognise her, and she's made the jump from the film to the streaming service. But because of the way things have turned out with COVID and everything else, we haven't had that film yet. And so her reveal is in this show. So that's perhaps why it wasn't quite as big as some people were thinking or expecting. There wasn't and Mephisto, which everyone was jokingly saying, we never got in WandaVision. We should have had it here. Obviously, as a joke because it wouldn't work. It's not the same thing. But it would have been more impactful because you would have gone, I know who she is. She's part of this new Phase 4 kind of behind the scenes baddie. But yeah, a lot of people, I mean, you're right, depending on what comic, in what decade, in what run, she'll have different roles and different things. But I suspect they will go with the Madam Hydra.
Yeah. Name of the actress, by the way, Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Thank God for Google. Good work.
Yeah. It was actually in my notes, just a lot further down. So, sorry.
Taken.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got Sam. He's with Joaquin, and they're looking at these broken wings. Now, again, this is quite a big moment because in the comics, Joaquin actually takes up the Falcon mantle. So I don't think we've seen the last of Joaquin, but Sam sort of tells him to take the wings, and we know Joaquin's quite a keen fixer. It's sort of been hinted at. I think he'll repair them, Alex. I think he'll come back somewhere in the future.
Oh, do you reckon?
I mean, in the comics, he sort of it's a little bit messed up. He actually sort of I can't remember how it happens, but he mutates into an actual Falcon. Like he's very I don't want to say ugly. That's probably the wrong word, but he's ugly.
He's a Birdman.
He is a Birdman.
Wow.
And he is Sam's sidekick in the Sam Wilson Captain America run, which sort of leads up to Secret Empire. But
yeah,
I haven't really seen him much since. And I'm a Kino. I love my comics. I buy graphic novels almost every month, which is pretty sad. Yeah, I haven't seen him since. But yeah, Sam goes off to visit Isaiah Bradley. Now, my other half, she listened to part 1 too. It was a very good episode, Dan. But you kept calling him Isaiah Brown. Now, I don't know where I've got Isaiah Brown from, but when I looked, he's actually a Chelsea football player. So yeah,
so perhaps you tuned into your other brain, which is the football side of things.
I mean, we're both football fans on the podcast. Will we talk about it in the future? I don't know. I don't want to talk about
VAR, Dan. Get in the sea.
Yeah, Portsmouth Football Club. Get in the sea.
Oh, don't be like that.
Oh, I don't know, mate. Years of torment, pain, hurt. I suppose that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't support a club because they're always winning unless you're Chelsea or City fans who don't really know the history. There's a dig there. Sorry, guys, for alienating you, but come on. You bought trophies for the last 20 years. Got a rich history, Portsmouth. It's not always about the winning. Sometimes about Harry Redknapp and his dodgy dealing and I can't say too much. I don't want to be done for slander. But anyway, it's all about the interesting history, the ups and downs, the thick and the thins, Dan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
They'll get back to the days of wonder. They'll get there, Dan. Don't worry.
We can all but hope. But yeah, anyway, we're back to Isaiah Bradley, and he actually believes that a black man cannot be Captain America. And that impacts I think Sam's mentality, and he's still wondering whether he should be carrying the shield. And you can see that internal struggle again. Like, should I be doing this? Should I be Captain America? Now, interestingly, Isaiah mentions the Red Tails and the famous 332, which were other names for the Tuskegee Airmen. A group of black military pilots and airmen who fought in World War II.
Huh.
So I like how they sort of tie a little bit of real life into this as well. This is Marvel. This is your universe outside your window. So great stuff. Now, Isaiah says that his fellow soldiers who took the serum died. Now, this actually happens in the comic books. Isaiah is the only survivor of the 300 black soldiers who were used as test subjects. He's got quite a sad background, doesn't he?
It's really sad. It's really tragic. I think that's why it's bittersweet in the next episode. But he lays it on quite thick. He's like, There's no way you should be dabbling. Look what's happened to me. It's not a world you should or you can operate in. And it's really at odds, obviously, with Steve's passing comments at the end of Endgame. He literally hands Sam the shield in the bag and says, you need to carry on for me and for the name. So he's on the one hand a downtrodden, hard done by, kind of betrayed Isaiah is on one hand saying, don't do it. Look at what happened to me. On the other hand, you've got Steve, who is literally an embodiment of perfection and moral high ground, saying do it. So it's difficult. And so he goes back home, doesn't he? To seek some solace, spend some time with the family. And again, it expands a little bit more about his background, which I'm really enjoying about it, by the way. It's nice to see a little bit more about Sam and his family, his sister and his nephews, and the family boat that they're doing up. And he ends up being joined by Bucky, who ends up helping out on the boat, and they're training with the shield. And there's a really cool, it's a very cheesy kind of late 80s, early 90s kind of training montage, but it's great. You can see that he's trying to get used to the shield, and he's failing, and he's jogging around the house, and he's throwing that thing like a frisbee, and a couple of times he self-decapitates himself, and it's quite a good training kind of montage.
Yeah, he's training hard, but there's a great moment actually on the boat. I've put this in my notes because I sent you a picture, didn't I? I think Friday or Saturday, I can't quite remember, where there's all this steam pouring out of the pipe, and Bucky grabs the wrench, and he cranks it, seals the steam flow, I guess. And Sam says, like, why didn't you use the metal arm? He said, well, I don't think to use it. Now this is interesting. Now, throughout Falcon and the Winter Soldier, if you notice in Infinity War, he's always using his normal arm. As the Winter Soldier, however, when he's in killer murdery mode, he uses the metal arm a lot. I mean,
he's left-handed. Yeah, he's left-handed when he's a killer, but when he's not, he's right. He's right-handed, and it is whether or not they actually wrote that in there or whether it was conscious thing, I don't know. But it's quite smart. And he's saying, I don't think about it. I'm right-handed. Just fair enough.
You got to have some eagle eyes to notice this stuff, because I wouldn't. I just enjoy it. I sit there and, every Friday and
it wash over you.
Or go to the cinema. I just forget about it. And I said to one of my friends, I said, I wish I had those eagle eyes to be able to talk about it on a podcast, but these people do it for me, and I'm bringing it to you. Because
we're sharing it.
If you don't see it on the internet, well, you're hearing it here right now.
There you go. It's a public service, Dan. We don't need any thanks. We just need you to tune in for next week.
Exactly.
That's the payment. But it's not just a helping hand on the boat that Bucky delivers, does it? He's also got a case.
Yes.
A silver case that is delivered from the Wakandans. Now, at this point, we don't actually find out. It's almost like a Pulp Fiction-esque moment at the end of the episode, where Sam opens the case and he's looking astonished at what he's looking at, but we don't actually get to see it. Of course, that is the biggest reveal, perhaps, of the whole season. In the next episode. But no, he's given a present because, of course, he's wingless, but he's got the shield and he's becomes more and more comfortable with it, and he's flipping and he's jumping and he's cartwheeling and he's looking the biz, isn't he? He's looking really good.
Yeah. I mean, this episode ends on the Flag Smashers planning an attack on a GRC conference, and they're joined by your favourite villain, Alex, Batroc. George's Batroc, who's been hired by Carter. And we get our first mid-credit scene. We see John Walker building a new shield from scrap metal and his war medals. He still believes that he is Captain America.
Yeah, and I think it really does go to show kind of his vulnerabilities, his mental states. Everyone's telling me you're not, and look what you've done. He's saying, no, I am. That's my God-given right. I'll do what I want.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we'll see in a couple of moments' time that shield holds up for shit. So You can try and do all you want in your workshop, bashing away at a new shield, but it ain't vibranium, mate.
No. It sort of reminds me of Frankenstein's monster. You know, it almost looks like it's stitched together a little bit. And
Yeah, you're right.
we'll get to it in a minute. But episode 6, One World, One People. And we see, well, the new Captain America, essentially.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I mean, this episode has a lot to unpack. But yeah, I mean, it comes straight out of the starting blocks, Dan, doesn't it? If the prior episode was kind of the build-up, this is definitely the bass drop. It's all kicking off at the GRC, and then we just see a shield smash through the window, knock a flag smash to the ground, and of course, who comes rolling in with the wings unfurled? It is almost one for one. I think it almost is comic book representation.
Yeah,
it's Sam in his glorious angel suit, for want of a better term.
It's just spot on, and I can't. Whoever does these costume designs, bravo, chef's kiss.
He is a literal chef's kiss moment, and I think the internet isn't quite so divisive on it, but some people are like, it looks silly, it doesn't look good. But I'm pretty confident they're only saying that if they haven't seen it in the comics.
Yeah, I call them regulars. They're just they only watch the films and the TV series. If you have a bit of comic book knowledge, then it's there, it's out there. I mean, the run wasn't that long ago. I think it was like 2017, 2018. So
still fresh,
really good run. It's a really good run of Sam Wilson as Captain America, and I genuinely think people should get on it and read it. You can get a month's free of Marvel Unlimited if you sign up. And then I think it's only like 9-10 quid a month. It's almost like a Netflix subscription. And all the new comics that get released, say in January, will drop in April, for example. So it's good stuff. I've only had a month's worth out of it, but I buy graphic novels all the time. I prefer the physical copy over reading it on my tablet.
And we were remarking, Dan, about my fragile mental state during the episode. And I must say, I shed a couple of tears during the episode. And this is the first time, Dan. And would you like to know why I shed a tear at this particular watershed moment?
Go for it.
I've got a little boy in the house, and sometimes when I'm watching TV, I have to have the TV on low, or it's just so bloody noisy, and I really can't hear what's going on without creating a racket through TV. So I have the subtitles on sometimes, and it was left on when I first started the program, and quite rightly did I leave it on there too, because as he bashes through the window, it comes up. It doesn't say Sam semicolon. And what he says, because sometimes, usually when you're first introducing someone to the screen, they'll say who they are, and then they'll just continue to have their written words. So introduce a character, not as Sam, not as a Falcon, but as Captain America.
Oh, beautiful.
And a lot of people wouldn't have got that, but I was like, I literally was like, this is immense, because they've kind of, he's wearing a suit, he's very proud, and he looks like it fits very well, and he's majestic, Dan, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's a majestic bird of prey, as they are in real life. And then you have Captain America under there on the credits. I'm like, this is it. He's arrived. And it was beautiful, and it brought a tear to my eye, Dan. And it was a wonderful moment. But of course, listen and talk about it now makes you sound like an absolute mentalist, but it really was a powerful moment. And again, not a lot of people would have got that had they not have had the subtitles on. So I got the big reveal before everyone else, or perhaps some of our hard of hearing people also perhaps got that reference before a lot of people when they actually said it out loud. But it was a really big moment, and it really kind of set the scene for the best 2/3 of that episode, really.
Yeah, I think actually in this moment, Sam announces that he's Captain America for the first time, and there is a guy that he literally says he thought Cap was on the moon, which I think was first referenced back in episode 1 by Joaquin.
Yes,
And Steve's first modern day fight in Captain America: The Winter Soldier is with Batroc, so another parallel between Steve and Sam.
Indeed.
Although, I mean, he fights Batroc in episode 1 in that epic helicopter fight.
That's brilliant. I still think it's one of the best kind of choreographed scenes. But yeah, he's not quite so faring so well in hand-to-hand combat with Batroc. I mean, he's holding his own just about, but he's not in a great space. But then they decide to peel off, don't they? And he goes on his own rescue attempt with the people that have been taken in the helicopter.
Oh, that's a great moment as well, where he shoots off Red Wing, and Red Wing picks out the lady that can fly the helicopter.
In my notes here, Dan, I've actually put down that I think this is reminiscent of the Iron Man 3 jumbo jet scene. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I do.
It's actually one of the most impressive skydiving scenes, I think, in cinema history still, because of the amount of people involved in that stunt. Anyway, that's a point, a bit of reference to Iron Man 3 and the cinematography. But it kind of it reminded me of that, if you know what I mean, like with the tech and relying upon it to choreograph the rescue. And I thought it was brilliant. I mean, for half of it, I couldn't see shit because my TV is that good that the not humble brag, it's the fact that my TV is that good that the darks and the blacks are so black that I could hardly see what's going on. But,
I mean, if you look at the fine detail as well, it identifies Ayla Perez, the lady that can fly the helicopter, that she was actually part of the Philippine Air Force, which I've put in my notes.
Yeah. That's good.
Again, got to have those eagle eyes. I don't have them.
It's also good to see that, we can still kind of get that futuristic tech that we've come to love from Stark technology, even when Tony Stark's not there. And I wonder whether they're going to start to kind of rely upon the Wakandans more and Shuri to kind of fill that void.
Yeah, I'll be interested.
Because Pepper's still obviously at the head of Stark Industries, but they don't have the creative mind and the innovation of Tony now. So I wonder whether Wakandans kind of slip into that role so that we don't have just boring suits and tech. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they tie that into Ironheart as well. Riri Williams. I mean, in the comic book, she's a super genius like Reed Richards. She's a 15-year-old kid, but she's sort of grown up, very intelligent. She builds her own suit of armor, and then she improves it, and somehow the AI is Tony Stark himself, which is kind of weird because he's in a coma at the time. But yeah, so I'm interested to see how all this ties in to all that techie stuff. Quite excited for the future. There was also a really good moment actually where I think you see Bucky on a motorcycle, and he does a similar thing to what Steve does in The Winter Soldier when he's trying to avoid the Quinjet. He sort of does a flip with the bike.
Oh yes, he does when he's isn't it when he is approaching them and he purposefully plows into the concrete barrier.
Yeah.
But flies off. It's almost also a similar kind of nod, I guess, to the beginning of Age of Ultron. Yeah. Where the Avengers, the very beginning of the scene where they're just attacking the castle, there's that together moment where they're all launching forwards to attack.
The money shot.
Yeah, it is the money shot, the Hydra base. It's almost a bit of that. But it's very, very good in a kind of a very raw kind of format. Of course, he's a blunt instrument, Bucky.
Yeah,
he literally throws himself into the action,
and then he falls off the edge, which again, sort of very similar to when Steve thought he was watching him fall to his death in the first Avenger.
Yeah,
but I mean, except this time, Bucky sticks. He literally does a superhero landing. What a legend!
He does. He lands it,
and even though they've been talking through the entire episode. You see Sam swoop in with the new Captain America suit, and you can just see the smile on Bucky's face. And it's wholesome.
It is
so wholesome.
The beginning of being BFFs, Dan.
They are. Do you know what? I love this friendship between these two, and the dynamic is fantastic.
It really is quite wholesome. So they're off saving or fighting, and of course, where's Walker? Well, Walker turns up. He's picking the fight from his own, and his shield lasts all of 20 seconds because it's shit. And he's going toe-to-toe with the Flag Smashers. And he ends up having this I wouldn't say it's a redeeming moment because the bloke's a prick. And I think he's still probably the most hated kind of superpowered person in the MCU at the moment. And they've done very well, by the way, to do that. It's a great effort and written kind of style to do that for people. But he's literally between exacting revenge or saving people's lives. Now, I thought he'd go, ditch the car, the other guys can deal with it. But no, he pulls the car off the precipice, the truck with the people inside, and he saves their lives. And yeah, he's not redeemed fully. He still murders someone in the cold light of day, but there's still some good in him, which I think is probably what the character needed, because he was on the precipice of evilness, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, philosophical, but he was in a bad place, let's put it that way. So he saved a lot of lives, and I think that's where you see an interesting scene where he's now at the bottom of that construction yard, and there's Bucky, the new Captain America, and what we now know as a US agent all together, which is just an interesting scene. Seeing all three now fighting.
I've got a question for you now, actually. Now it comes to my mind. There's a moment where one of the meat wagons is they've set it on fire, the flag smashers, and Bucky's punching away at the lock. Now, in all the times we've seen the damage that Bucky can do with his metal arm, why did it take so long to punch a lock off?
No idea. He's a good 20 seconds punch the crap out of it.
I mean, mind you, it's quite a meaty thing. Like, it's always like I'd sort of describe it like almost like a spider, because it sort of like latches on and it sort of digs its teeth in. But
I'm not being funny, Dan. I'm not being funny, but would you not have just gone, screw this, I'll punch a hole through a weakened part of the side of the car and just tear it open? Or how about smash the window and then just open it up like a tin can? Why? Obviously, it's for effect and it's for peril, but you're right. I think that's a bit of a loophole, and it was at the detriment, perhaps, of the writing. But yeah, you wouldn't. You go, this lock isn't budging. I'm going to smash a window, and then I'm going to just open it out like a tin can. At least that's what I would do. So yeah, a little bit weak, but hey.
Never mind. We got there in the end, and no one was hurt, thankfully.
No.
I mean, elsewhere, we got Sharon Carter, big reveal, accidentally reveals that she's the power broker to Batroc.
Sorry, Dan, was it a big reveal?
No, I think it was too obvious, because
I think you go all the way back to Madripoor. I think the writing was on the wall. Now, perhaps I'm just not trusting, but she was waltzing around all this power. We don't get hide or hair of any other big player in that episode or since. I thought it was pretty obvious. Now, I didn't see it as a big reveal. You can see that she was a bit disgruntled with her home country. Yeah. She helped out Captain America. She helped out the end result of the film of the Winter Soldier. They turned her back on her, so she's going to be pissed off. And then what would the time spend, I guess, during the events of Endgame? She's got time to amass her empire. So I thought that was a given, but apparently they put it down to a big reveal. So yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought they could have either hidden it more, presented her as being, I guess, in the shadows, poor. She's got contacts, but that's all she's got. She hasn't got the funding, she hasn't got the resources, but they kind of showed their hand. What, episode 2 was it? In Madripoor?
Yeah, episode 3.
Yeah, episode 3, where she's got all these works of art and they've got a palace. I'm like, guys, it just felt like it was a bit lazy going, oh yeah, by the way, she's power broker. I'm like, well, yeah, no shit. Like,
yeah, it was almost like underwhelming.
I think it really was. I don't know. It was meant to be a big reveal, but I didn't get that. And you're right. She's called out, and Batroc waltzes in and
meets his grisly end, basically.
Yeah.
Gets shot a few times. Unlucky.
Well, yeah. I mean, people tend not to be dead in the MCU, so maybe he escapes hospital and he's not. But either way, yeah, he's down and out. And Sam ends up joining the fight, and he's obviously not aware of this conversation between Carly, who realizes obviously that Sharon is the power broker, and she ends up fighting now Sam. Sharon's taken one to the gut, so she's down and out.
Yeah.
And they're fighting. He's saying, "No, I won't fight you." And again, it's reminiscent of Steve, isn't it?
Yes.
In the previous films, where he said, "No, I won't fight you." Yeah, with Tony, isn't it, in Civil War?
He says it's a Bucky in the Winter Soldier.
Of course it is. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when he's on the bridge of the helicarriage before it's about to go down, and he's saying that I'm not going to fight you. I don't want to. I don't believe in what you're doing, but I also understand what you're doing. And before he can talk around, of course, Sharon shoots her. She's dead.
Yeah, she's dead.
Brown bread.
It's quite an emotional moment as well, where you see Sam carrying Carly, and he almost descends from the sky. It's almost angelic, isn't it?
It is.
But I mean, after all this has happened, Wilson convinces the GRC to postpone the forced relocation of displaced people that Morgenthau died fighting for, and instead make efforts to help them.
And that speech he gives, I mean, Dan, this is where I also then broke down again, because it's very impassioned and it's still relevant, like in real world, right? It's the Black Lives Matters. It's about people, being displaced. That's happening in the world with, untold countries with genocide and displacement and civil war. And it really struck a tone. As I say, I might have been, mentally vulnerable that day, may not have had enough caffeine, hadn't slept particularly well, or down on sugar. But I thought it was brilliant. It was really well written and it was very well delivered by Anthony Mackie. And I thought it was phenomenal. I really do think that's one of the main. If he says the key speeches are up there in terms of the MCU, of course it's going to be up there because it's in recent memory. But I truly think it's a really good bit of writing.
Yeah,
and it just kind of pulled it together, because then he was saying, this is not going to be easy for me. People will look at me and say, well, why should there be a black Captain America? And but I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for this. And it's really powerful, Dan. I thought it was brilliant, because then it pulls it all together. Sam fully now understands kind of what was asked of him from Steve. He understands kind of what it means to be a black superhero, where Isaiah obviously had been really badly treated by the government and forced into exile, and after being experimented on for 30 years and all this, he's acknowledging all of that and then saying, but you know what? If I don't do it, who will?
Yeah.
It's just such a good scene, Dan. I thought it was brilliant. Really, really good. And it really struck a chord with me. As I say, I may have choked up a little bit then, but again, I was only 2 cups of tea in that day, so maybe a lack of caffeine. But let's not take it away from the delivery from Anthony Mackie, which was phenomenal.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm surprised I didn't get more emotional. And I think we've mentioned this in a previous episode.
An absolute monster, Dan. You're a monster.
Through the past year and stuff, I can watch things, and I don't know if it's all the lockdowns and all that stuff, but I sort of find myself getting more emotional about things, whereas I didn't feel moved. This is the guy that cried at Mandalorian, the season finale of season 2, and
you're a monster.
I am a monster. Genuinely a monster.
If you have kids, I think a lot of people might resonate if they have kids. If you have kids, the simplest of things will fuck you up. And I don't know what it is. Perhaps because you're more in tune with your parental kind of instincts, or perhaps you become more empathetic because you've got someone else to look after, and you're nurturing this human being, and you want grand and amazing things for them. But I think since having a little boy, I've become even more emotionally in touch with my inner self. It's getting very deep, down for this episode. But anyway, I think a combination of what you just said and perhaps having children, perhaps that's why it messed me up. But I was a streaming blubbering mess, and I'm a modern man, and I can admit that on recording, because of course once on the internet, it's forever there. And I don't mind saying that, Dan, because I thought it was a wonderful bit of writing. and wonderfully executed by that actor.
Maybe if I rewatch it, I'll get a bit blubbery, but I don't know.
If you watch it together, if ever we can do that soon, we could be in the same room close enough and we watch together, I will pinch you just to force those tears. I will see justice done.
Yes, please do.
Good. I will.
There's a fantastic moment. If you need a refresher, I'll get to that in a minute. But the remaining serum enhanced flag smashers are caught by Barnes and Walker, and we think they're being sent off to the raft, but they get blown up.
They do.
They get blown up by an old guy in the car, who was Zemo's butler, who we saw back in episode 3. I think his name is Oznick.
Isn't it? I did wonder why it lingered on him, but I couldn't quite place him. But you're right, it's a butler.
It's great because you see Zemo in his cell on the raft. He's got the radio on. The news has announced that these super serum enhanced flag smashers have been blown up. There's just a little wry smile. He turns the radio off and he sort of he goes back into his bed. He's like, that's it, job done.
Yeah, I can go home now.
Yeah, done. Bring him back. I want more Zemo in the future.
Yeah, I agree.
Then we see DeFontaine giving Walker a new uniform and the codename US Agent. Oh,
it's going to happen.
We saw that coming. He's not Captain America anymore, but the only difference of his suit is it's black. It is very reminiscent of the comic book uniform that he wears.
Straight out of it, yeah.
Another thing that's worth noting: there's not a lot of white in his costume either.
Yeah, perhaps that's symbolism in terms of innocence. I don't know. Also, like the wedding dress. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but like the wedding dress kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you wear white at your wedding, you're supposed to be whatever. It's all nonsense, of course. But perhaps it's symbolising the absence of good. Because of course, the polar opposite is Sam's new suit, which is almost entirely white with sprinkles of blue and red.
I suppose it's almost like purity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sam's good, and you've got Walker, who's he's not so innocent. He's a bit of a bellend. We've seen that.
A bit harsh with that, actually. At the end, you can still see that he wants to do good, and you still see that he really does believe in the fight. He is a patriot. So I don't fully buy into what I just said. He is a bit of a knob, but
he's not a villain, is he? I think he said this in part 1. He doesn't quite have.
He's misguided.
Yeah.
I think, and he's got the best intentions, but ultimately he's not. He hasn't got the experience to be able to wield that power. I think ultimately what we're saying, and so I can't. I'm not saying I'm a fan of him at the end, but you can see his excitement about being back into the saddle and having a role to play again.
Yeah,
which is interesting to kind of leave that character.
This sort of choked me up a little bit. Was seeing Bucky go back to that elderly gentleman that we see him hanging out with in episode 1.
Oh yes, and he killed his son.
And he's making amends, and I think he actually confesses, I killed your son. I was the Winter Soldier. It's genuinely quite sad, And
he's lost his mate.
Yeah,
what's he going to do on a Wednesday evening now?
Yeah, exactly.
It's but in order for him to, I guess, move forward, he had to tick those names off on the list, of which, of course, we see at the end of the episode, the book is complete. And it's a present now to his counsellor.
Yeah. And then you've got Sam, who takes Isaiah Bradley to the Captain America Museum exhibit. And, there's a really nice reveal. There's the memorial for Isaiah at the Smithsonian. I can't get that word out, Alex. I need to put my teeth in. And it talks about how he was one of a dozen African-American soldiers who were recruited against their will and without their consent for participation in human testing in pursuit of the super soldier serum.
Now, Dan, at this point, I've been lined up and I've been hit out the park, and I am now an absolute blubbering mess on the floor.
You gave me a heads up on this, and I was like, "This is quite a really nice moment," but I'm not feeling it.
I was ruined. Just because I really felt kind of the bittersweetness and the justice that was. Oh, it was all too late, 30 plus years, and he's not being recognised, and he's living out his days in the back of a house, and no one knows really what the sacrifice he went through. But Sam, to give that back to him and try and give him that kind of a little bit of restoration of faith, I thought was great. It was nice to see, and it was fitting for that character that obviously, never saw justice during their younger years.
Yeah. It also talks about how the government falsified his death certificate for fear of there being a black super soldier. So yeah, it's a really nice thing to sort of give back to Isaiah Bradley. Of course, we get to the end where they're all having a party. You've got Sam, you've got Sarah, you've got the residents of this little village or wherever they are living. And you can also see that Bucky isn't wearing his gloves, which is usually a sign that he's comfortable around people. He's quite happy to show off his metal arm, his metal hand.
And there's quite a lot of memes on the internet. Have you seen it about how they're like their BFFs and Bucky's now Sam's Bay, and it's it's very, very funny. But it is a really kind of touching moment, and he's there rocking up, and he's part of the family, and he's got a place in the world again. And it's a really nice way to kind of show just where he's even, I think, an element where, or a scene where Sam's looking out longingly at the ocean, reflecting. And then Bucky comes along, taps on the shoulder, then they go arm in arm back. And it's a very touching moment. It's nice to see how far the characters have come, all the way from, if you remember episode, was it 2 when we're in the hangar?
Yeah.
They're talking about wizards and aliens, and they clearly, they obviously have some kind of respect for each other, but they're bickering, to now where they have that mutual respect and an appreciation for one another. It's nice to see that development in their relationship.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to seeing more of Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson in the MCU?
Oh, hell yeah. I don't think when they announced this, a year and a half ago now, I was like, all right. I kind of got the funny side in Civil War, are you going to move your seat? No, I'm not, that kind of thing, and the bickering and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't really think there was much mileage in it. But what they've been through, and they're both equally kind of struggling with their place in the world and the legacy of Steve and what Steve meant to them, which was very, very similar, and his expectations on the role they have going forwards. I didn't appreciate just how that could work as like a buddy cop type show. And I think it really does work. And as I say, they've come such a long way in such a short amount of time. I think it's brilliant. So 100% want to see more. Be interested to see even more of their backstories, how they've tried to build a life post a blip and all the rest of it. I think it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan? Are you there for it, or?
Oh, 100%. And I think at the time of recording, it wasn't long after episode 6 that they announced Captain America 4 is in production.
Well, Dan, interesting enough, Anthony Mackie didn't even fucking know either.
Did he not?
Apparently the news was delivered to him when he was collecting his, inverted commas, groceries. We call it food shopping here, but groceries. He was at the getting his shopping, and when he was paying for the bloody stuff, the guy said, "Oh, you're Anthony Mackie. Loves your show. By the way, great news about Cap." And he's like, "What?" And then he got the call from Marvel and said, "We've got some cool stuff to show you." But they never even they broke the news first, so they went to Anthony about it. Which I don't know. It's not surprising really, because these guys would have signed multiple contracts and appearances, so he would have known there'll be additional appearances either in other films or whatever. It's just he didn't know about it, and a regular Joe was so enthused they showed him the article on his phone as he was paying for his food.
Wow,
that's how they roll.
Jesus, either his agent is slacking, or Marvel Studios need to, get off their asses and actually tell their actors and actresses that this is what's happening.
Yeah, but amazing. Great. What Cap 4 is it? Brilliant. I do wonder though. I do we're probably the right part of this episode, Dan. I do wonder though, and I'm pondering, if you don't have Disney Plus or you haven't got on board with this, and then you're hit with the rest of Phase 4, what are you going to be thinking? Because the last you've seen is a bit of Endgame and then maybe a bit of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But you're not going to know really an awful lot about the world. You're not going to know about the struggles and now what we know as a GRC and the kind of the social, political scenario, situation in the world. You're not going to know the struggles of Bucky and the Wakandans, and he's not welcome there at the minute, so he can't go back there. You're not going to know about this new suit. It's all going to be a bit weird. And then don't forget about freaking poor Vision and WandaVision. Now there's another Vision floating around. Shit, I mean, you're going to miss out on so much. I do wonder at what point they're going to go, you know what, fuck it. You knew this was happening. If you're not going to get on board, tough shit, make up your own kind of backstory whilst you watch these films. Or are they going to do? I don't know, Dan. It's really interesting one. I guess time will tell. But yeah, they've covered a lot. There's a lot of ground, a lot of new kind of narratives they've opened up that when they bleed into films, I mean, it's going to look absolutely fucking bananas, isn't it? If you haven't seen any of this in the last 3 months, you're not going to know what's going to go on.
I do wonder if they'll release it on like Blu-ray, DVD, etc. Because, you know, once a film sort of hits the cinema, you have to wait about a good 3 or 4 months before it sort of goes and hits the supermarket shelves.
If not longer, yeah.
Or your Amazon or your local indie shops. But yeah, I do wonder if we'll get like physical copies. And I'll buy them because, you know, I love these and I like to have the collection. Yeah, absolutely. Mid-credit scene, underwhelming. Very underwhelming. Episode 6. After receiving a full pardon, you've got Sharon Carter.
Weak.
Sharon Carter rejoins the CIA and intends to use the access to sell government secrets and resources. Now,
a bit of a yawning moment here, Dan. I thought just a bit obvious. Ha, guys. Yeah, I mean, let me sell all this government tech.
Yeah,
jokes on them. It just felt a little bit weak.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that was interesting was that she was referred to as Agent Carter, which was a title that was always reserved for Peggy.
Yes.
Now, this is the first time Sharon has been called Agent Carter because she was always known as Agent 13 or Sharon.
Indeed.
Well, we do have some Easter eggs for all the episodes. So I'll break them down. So episode 4, comic numbers. Outside the apartment Sam, Bucky and Zemo are hiding in, you can see the number 23. This could be a nod to Captain America Volume 5, Issue 23, which is a comic in the Civil War arc that follows Bucky.
Oh, okay.
Next up, another comic book nod. You can see that Zemo is wearing a purple sweater, which is a nod to the purple being Zemo's signature colour throughout the comic books. They do like their colour references, don't they? I think we touched on this in WandaVision, that Wanda always sort of wears red and Vision likes green. But yeah, anyway. A bit of continuity. Zemo mentions his son in this episode, and of course the death of his son and wife in Sokovia was Zemo's main motivation for taking the Avengers down in Civil War. I'm not going to read the theory because I only put that in there that Sharon could be the power broker. We know she is. Get in the sea. Rubbish. Continuity nod. Sam mentions that he used to counsel soldiers dealing with trauma, which was first mentioned in Captain America The Winter Soldier, where Sam and Steve met. Now, fun parallel. Now, I only noticed this when I watched The Winter Soldier, but Steve does the same thing in Endgame for victims of the snapping. Just going to throw that out there.
Not the blip. But the snapping.
The snapping. We don't like the word the blip.
No, it's not a thing.
One more comic book nod. When Sam gets a text from Carly, his phone reads 3:12 p.m. This is probably a nod to Captain America 312, which is the comic that introduces the Flag Smashers.
There you go.
It's all a bit convenient, these Easter eggs.
It's all connected.
Yeah, so a bit of a theory on Julia Louis-Dreyfus showing up as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Now, this is quite big. So, as I mentioned earlier, she could be one of a number of things. In the comics, Val is a Russian sleeper agent for Leviathan, who also becomes an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and works closely with Nick Fury. Fury and Val have a romantic relationship in the comics, and also Leviathan previously appeared in Agent Carter. I can't see a romantic relationship happening here because, I mean, the age gap's huge in this real world. So I'm going to sort of dispose of that theory, but I still think she's Madam Hydra.
Yeah, I agree. We haven't seen the end of it.
Yeah. Also, in the comics, Val works closely with Sharon Carter, and the duo become a part of the Femme Force, an all-woman assault team for S.H.I.E.L.D. But again, something I can't see actually happening.
No, I think a lot of history and it's gone in a different direction. I don't think that's probably something which will be followed up in this version of the comics.
Now, apparently, the Falcon and Winter Soldier is supposed to be setting up multiple upcoming MCU projects, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus' arrival is definitely leading to some important storylines. Now, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, head writer Malcolm Spellman revealed that this show will tie into at least three upcoming Marvel projects. What's even more interesting is Malcolm couldn't even mention which projects which will be affected because he's not allowed to talk about them just yet.
Well, yeah, because they haven't even been announced. I mean, we've got... it's probably going to be Hawkeye. That's due end of the year, I think.
Yeah.
You won't get anything Loki. That's just a different kind of ballpark. But that's all they've signed up. No, She-Hulk, tell a lie. So She-Hulk.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Is there any others?
I mean, there's a lot, but I can't think where she would tie into.
It's not going to be in What If.
No.
That's it, isn't it? That's the only... Oh, yeah. Secret Invasion?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
But I mean, I don't think they've announced any other TV shows. So perhaps because it's been so well received, we've gone, well, let's push the button on Cap 4 and let's commission some more TV shows because it's clearly a format which has worked for them.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin Feige also said that they're planning multiple seasons for several of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, but he wouldn't reveal if Falcon and Winter Soldier was one of them because, quote, the spoiler realm. So he's not releasing anything.
Do you know what? Daredevil season 4, it's got to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
It's got to happen.
Again, there's a lot of rumours swirling around that Charlie Cox could be reprising his role as Daredevil in the MCU.
I bloody hope so.
And the same for the Kingpin. I forget his name, the actor's name, but he's supposedly being lined up as well.
Yes.
Anyway, on to the comic book nod. This episode is called Truth, which is a nod to the 2003 comic book series Truth, Red, White and Black, which focuses on Isaiah Bradley and his story. Again, if you want to get Marvel Unlimited, I'm sure you'll probably find it on there without a doubt, but it's not something I'm familiar with. Maybe I'll pick it up though. Okay. And last up, director Rian Johnson revealed that Apple doesn't let bad guys have iPhones on screen. And Sharon is out here calling Batroc on a non-iPhone. You know, we're not saying Sharon's a villain, but, you know, as the power broker,
Apple's not happy.
No. Finally, on to episode 6. The first continuity nod is Sharon using that tech to disguise her appearance, also known as a nanomask.
Oh, yes.
We first see Natasha use this in The Winter Soldier to infiltrate the World Security Council meeting.
That's right.
Because when she did it at first, I was like, I recognise that.
Yeah, same. I couldn't place it, but you're right. It's at the end of the film, isn't it, to gain access to the access codes on the helicarrier.
Comic book nods. Sam's first major fight as Captain America is with Batroc, which also happens in All New Captain America issue 1. Another comic book nod. that 105 on the Flag Smashers app could be a nod to Captain America Volume 1, Issue 105, which featured Captain America fighting Batroc. A bit of continuity, but the roles are reversed. Now, when they are leaving, Sam is on Bucky's left, which just calls back to his iconic "on your left" phrase. And last up, John Walker's new suit directly matches US agent suit from the comic books, which we mentioned earlier. So it's the black, white, and red. And we might see him with a shield in the future as well.
Yeah.
But that wraps up the Easter eggs in this episode. Oh, Christ, I've just knocked my laptop. We've got some listeners' feedback, Alex.
We do.
First up, we've got Gemma. We need to have words.
Yeah, Dan, I'm not happy about this.
No, controversial.
Very.
I got
what did you say?
I got so bored, I stopped watching it. Now, just to give this a bit of background, I know Gemma. She is part of the bride tribe that I'm in. I am going to be a bridesman for a friend after making a joke about it back in the very first lockdown.
Teacher.
I pitched this incredible hen do, and basically the joke was not a joke anymore. It was suddenly, oh, you're in. So okay, this I've known Gemma for a few years anyway. She used to sort of hang out with my cousins and friends way back when we were younger. But anyway, I will have word. Gemma, I implore you, watch this series, or you can get in the sea.
Hopefully after the wedding, it might be a bit awkward.
Yeah, do it after the wedding,
Yeah.
but get in the sea. I've got good grounds to say that. So if you're listening, you're not even my fellow troublemaker anymore. You're not my fellow DJ.
It needs to be addressed.
She does prefer WandaVision, to be fair.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to what I said at the beginning of the episode, Dan, where I think WandaVision did so much in different art style, in different storytelling, direction, story. It was all of it. But this felt like it was MCU. It felt like home, Dan. It felt like the MCU. It felt like it was a continuation of like that kind of that Winter Soldier type feel. Why Cap 2 was so good. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what point. It is Gemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, at what point Gemma would switch off? Because for me, that would have been episode 5, but for good reason, because it was setting up episode 6. But whatever it is, give it another go. I think there's so much they cover and such good, rich. It's poor English, and it's such good, really good kind of character development. I think you'll be kicking yourself if you don't experience that. Give it a go.
I retract everything I said and listen to Alex. He's nicer than I am.
If she still doesn't watch it or still doesn't agree, then she can get in and see Dan.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
More diplomatic approach. This is why you're the yin to my yang.
Exactly.
Next up, we've got the lads over at Star Wars Sessions. Great podcast, lads.
Oh yeah, shout out to those guys.
No, they just missed part 1, so I'm plugging them in now. They said, quite enjoying it overall. Sometimes it loses my attention, but overall, a great watch. The cinematography is incredible, and they put some flames. And guys, I'll be mentioning you in our next episode because your podcast has probably kept me going over the past year. If people are watching The Mandalorian now, I implore you go and listen to their Mandalorian episode breakdowns because it's just so good.
Yeah, good shout.
Last up, we've got my old bandmate Sam. He says, I only managed to watch the last episode last night, and I was absolutely gutted that it's now ended. The reveal of Cap, Bucky just being a bae, and just all the typical Marvel cliffhangers really made me adore this series.
Yeah, I agree.
If I could class this as a film for MCU ranking purposes, this would be right up there in the top 3. That's bold. That's bold.
It is going. That's quite strong words.
With everything going on in the world now and in the past year, this was just what I needed, and it hit all the right spots. And do you know what? I can't agree more.
I don't disagree. Yeah. It's I think it gives you that escape. It gives you that familiarity, and it is 45 minutes, give or take, or 30 minutes, whatever it is, of escapism, and it is great storytelling. If it was a film, Dan, would it make your top three? Do you agree with Sam?
It's hard because my top three
rankings before, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think Sam has challenged us to do an episode where we rank all the MCU stuff. And it's hard because I know my top 5 will always change, always. But I think if you removed the 2 big Avengers films, Infinity War and Endgame, then yeah, I think it probably could be up there in my top 5 anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, top 5 probably, yeah. I mean, top 3 for me is quite tight, and I think I've talked about before, I've got some left fields in there. Ant-Man is 100%. Easy. Top 3, Captain America 2, Winter Soldier, and probably Iron Man.
Yeah, good shout. I mean, that's where it all began.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is room. I mean, there's not. There's 3, and that'll make it 4. So there's not room for this. But I mean, yeah, if it was a film, it could make it. I guess it does have all the hallmarks of some great storytelling.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be an interesting episode for sort of the near future. But I think we'll break the MCU stuff up a little bit. We've got some good stuff coming up. Of course, people want to get in contact. They can find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at On The Topic Pod. And of course, I always put a link into our socials, which allows you to leave a voice message like our previous listeners, and you can be a part of the show. But I think we've got some good stuff coming up, Alex.
Yeah, we have. I think very shortly, if not after this one episode, we'll have things to keep you occupied, or things that we've done or you can do if you're still at home or twiddling your thumbs, either in a lockdown or social distancing, or perhaps the monotony of current world events. You're looking for recommendations. We've got some actually across a number of different medias, video games to films, TV shows. We've got them. So still plenty of time for you guys to get involved and to recommend. We've got our own. We've exchanged notes. I mean, a bit of a spoiler alert, Lupin. So if you guys fancy a little bit of fancy continental French speaking Netflix goodness, that one's brilliant, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that in that episode. But anything like that, get in contact. Let us know what you're watching, what you're enjoying, perhaps what you want the world to get in on. Because I know there's plenty out there.
Yeah, I know. I know some of our UK listeners are probably thinking, why are you doing a volume 2? Because we did a volume 1 last year, just before the first lockdown, before we knew how major this was going to be. We all thought it would be like 2-3 weeks, but here we are, like over a year on. But we do have listeners all over the world, which still blows my mind. And they're all in different circumstances. You look at India, for example, at the moment. Christ, it's really unpleasant watching. But yeah, it's primarily for them. But even if we're sort of reaching normality here in the UK, I think there's still some good recommendations there. We did a binge watching episode back in 2019.
I think we did, yeah.
There'll be lots of TV series for us to talk about. Do you know what? I just crossed my mind, Alex. It's coming up to our 3rd birthday.
It is.
So it'll be time for that annual Ask Us Anything. And I think this year it could be interesting because, we're not restricting it to pop culture.
No, it could be literally anything, either from a back catalogue, of which we've got, 90 odd episodes or something? Many seasons and quite a few years now. So start getting those questions in on any topic, any angle. We've obviously, changed up since the weekly roundup. We can do anything. The shackles are loose. And we've had a great not even first half of the year, Dan. We've been very busy. We've reached out to South Sea Creatives. We've done interviews. We've covered TVs, films. It's been busy and it's been good. So have
Yeah.
a listen and get in touch and give us your questions, because that's going to be a really good episode.
And I really hope we can get some more guests lined up. I think I've put 2 in the pipeline. Unfortunately, they can't quite commit at the moment. They're slightly busy, but they could be 2 good episodes to look out for in the
Yes.
future.
I agree.
Oh, man, that was a good episode.
It is. And, in a couple of months, June, is going to be Loki?
Yep. Well, so no doubt we'll do a breakdown of that one.
Yeah. So lots to look forward to. And as I say, also we said we'll have some really good episodes coming up. So do get your recommendations or your questions through to us. Look out for those socials. We'll be dropping over the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
As we start to pull those episodes together.
Thank you for tuning in as ever. And for this week, I've been Dan.
And I've been Alex.
And I'm going to punch my way out of here. See you next time.